This episode is brought to you by MEXC crypto trading platform. With the wild swings we're experiencing in these crypto markets, why not take advantage of the wide range of cryptos to actually trade on MEXC? Find your next moonshot and never miss another crypto gem again. And use the link below and I'll airdrop you $25 worth of Bitcoin. Visit MEXC.com for more information. Link in the description below.
This my two Satoshis, who need 2 cents when they can get double from stacking Toshis, yeah.
Hola, GNGs. I am Trek with 2Ks, and this is my 2 Satoshis brought to you on CBTV. If you don't know, that is Crypto Blood TV. And I just want to get some thank yous and gratitude stuff out the way. I appreciate very much the folks who are actually tapping in and watching the episodes, because why? It shows that I'm saying something right. Either people agreeing with me or they disagreeing with me. Either way, I appreciate the viewership count going up. And this also works in regards to the algos. A double thank you and shout outs to the folks who are leaving comments and the folks who are doing the thumbs up. I also appreciate the folks who are doing the thumbs down. If you're doing the thumbs down, guess what? I appreciate you too, because you're showing us some interaction as far as the algos see it. Hey, if you leave a negative comment too, like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about, you're talking out your ass, I appreciate that too, because then I got to step my game up and be able to deliver better information to y'all, right? That's the bottom line. But nonetheless, I appreciate all the trolls. I appreciate the lurkers. I appreciate the folks who are doing the positive interactions in regards to the comments as well as the negative. And so let's move on into these stories. But first, let me tell y'all, if you don't know, the basic idea of my 2 Satoshis is I talk about a little bit of crypto related stuff and then a little bit of non-crypto related stuff. And I give my 2 Satoshis on some things that I might be aware of about them. And that's how you have it. So jumping into this first story, Terra Luna situation, it basically came out that it looks like Do Kwon was already closing down some parts of the company and the offices before the de-pegging situation happened, right? Now, I ain't even gonna bother to read that because I just told y'all basically what happened. It looks like he was closing down certain parts of the company before the de-pegging. Now, I don't have any bag in this, but I will say to the folks who do, this ain't financial advice, but you might want to pay more attention to this situation. So part of this new proposal idea he has to revive Terra Luna basically says Terra is currently in the process of actioning a revival plan based on the Second Amendment of the Governance Proposal 1623. If approved, it will enact 3 revisions to the current system. Increase the Genesis liquidity from 15 to 30% to mitigate future inflationary pressure. Implement a novel liquidity profile for pre-attack Luna holders and decrease funds to post-attack Luna UST holders. I don't know about all that right there. It might work, it might not work. Again, it's all algo-based. If it's all algo and computer-based, that means somebody could eventually figure out another way to hack it again, but whatever. I'm not in that bag myself. So I will say this, just look into this, pay more attention. If you do have something, again, not financial advice. Jumping on to this next story. Oh man, this one got me. This is actually a couple of months old as an interview. This is Jack Mallers, and he's talking with, what's his name from What Bitcoin Did? And I cannot remember his name right now. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name right now. My bad. But somebody sent this in one of my Telegram groups. And I was like, wait, what? Where did this interview come from? I'm gonna play a small segment of this for something that he says.
And I feel like I'm playing chess versus, people that think they're playing bingo. In the first quarter, Coinbase had $1.8 billion, with 94% of that was charging fees to acquire digital assets. And sure, they have 1 million digital assets, but it was almost all Bitcoin. And so the 4%, 3.9%, 2.9% they're charging users is their entire business. That's the point I'm trying to make, is without it, they wouldn't have a functional business.
I will have the link for this Peter McCormick interview with Jack Mallers in the description. Shout outs to Peter. And I'm not gonna lie, initially I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Jack. The man's business acumen is like definitely on point. I'm not gonna lie, you gotta give people their roses when they showing you they doing what they do. The man is on his game. The point that he's making is something that is a part of every type of business sector, business model. You have your setup for how you make money. What is your revenue stream model? The point that he's making is when it comes to what we see as the big name companies in the space right now, most of them, and he used Coinbase as the bigger example, and he goes very hard a couple minutes later on in this at Coinbase and Brian Armstrong directly, okay? To say that charging a gate guard fee to be able to process people's cryptocurrency transactions is not a sustainable model, because eventually someone will come in and do a undercutting fee of being able to charge it, because they will come up with another revenue model that is more sustainable and not have to depend on that side of how you make money in the business. He's making the point that things like Coinbase, things like Kraken, things like a couple of other crypto related exchanges and platforms that are charging people to move their crypto back and forth for whatever it is they're doing, that means of income is not sustainable to the business, because it is always a race to the bottom to be able to offer a service or a product at a cheaper price. That's what he's saying in this. And that happens in every type of business. You can even look at it when you talk about how we deal with labor, the overhead costs. Now we have the ability to have remote workers who can live in other countries. We have the ability to have people produce physical items who can be in other countries. That's the outsourcing game. My point to this whole thing is, look at what's going on with these companies, and you're gonna start to see over this decade, there's gonna be some rumblings that happen between who was in the top 3 or 5 companies this first half of this decade, as far as the 2020 to 2025, to see who's on the other side of 2025. This idea of race to the bottom is not something exclusive to the blockchain crypto space as far as business revenue models and structures and stuff. This is any sector, whether you're talking about a service or a product, is my point. I'm definitely recommending you listen to this interview and the point that he makes, because your man he's on point with it. And again, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of certain things that he says, but I got to give it to him when he says some things that I'm just like, yep, you seen the direction. And he makes the point of, he's taking strike and he's just like, yo, I'm just jumping straight to the bottom of the business model, as far as I'm just not going to charge. I'm not going to wait 2 to 3 years to start scaling back how we move from charging people smaller amounts because our competitors are charging people smaller amounts. I'm just jumping straight to the bottom. And we got another way that we actually make money as a functional business. I'm gonna stop beating that horse. I'm gonna jump into this next story. I'm definitely recommending to check out this episode of What Bitcoin Did, so you can get the full scope of what he's saying in the whole interview. He definitely is on point with it. And so I'm gonna jump into this other thing. This is an opinion piece in, what was it, Bitcoin Magazine, right? And I had to say, I forgot what brought my attention to this. I'm going to end up reading a couple of different lines out of it, but the basic idea was that someone was comparing the invention of barbed wire back in the 1870 something to the invention of the Bitcoin protocol, and what this thing entails, and how it not just changed one particular industry that it was created in, but it went beyond that industry. And it had a double-edged sword effect on it, where it was positive on one side of it and it was negative on another side of it, depending on how you were using it or interacting with it. And so let me just jump into this real quick. Some of Bitcoin's properties sound abstract. Properties like digital ownership, censorship resistant, centralization, and more. But the deeper you dig into the Bitcoin rabbit hole, the more you realize that Satoshi even implemented some mutually exclusive properties simultaneously: freedom of privacy, property rights. In fact, Bitcoin reconciles an uncensorable synonymous system and extreme form of property rights. So the other part I wanted to highlight is the Crypto Anarchist Manifesto. I would argue, and it's funny, what was it? Rice Crypto called King Bliss from Gentleman of Crypto a crypto anarchist, and Blood was making a joke like, Black people don't do anarchy, and he was like, no, you got to actually look up what the word is and what it means. And I'm telling you, if you look up crypto anarchist, you'd be surprised how many things a lot of us have in common with what it is defined as. Not gonna beat that horse down, but jumping on to the next part. Another book that I thought was interesting that is referenced in this is A Sovereign Individual. Definitely a game changer if you're looking at understanding like where society or people are moving in this whole thing of like global mobility. This was one of the first books I came across that called that out, and then bringing that into the fold of how there's this invention called blockchain, and you are able to use it in regards to the currency utility of it, where there's no borders. As long as you're able to get that connection, this thing can go anywhere with you, or you have access to your funds anywhere, is really the more technical way of saying it. And I wanted to try to run through this section right here. And the reason why is because the guy makes the comparison of how, what was it? That there was the positive side of how the one thing made it that people were able to come up and understand a whole new type of other concept and operation. Case in point, for when barbed wire became an invention back in the day, the Native Americans or the indigenous people of the lands didn't have the same concept of ownership as far as it being a defined border area. Barbed wire changed that whole concept. It's even for the settlers who came in and took the lands, it changed that whole concept for them. And it then eventually influenced the indigenous people of those different areas. But then you also have it where if you were a cowboy and the cowboys ran out on the prairie and they had like open range, there's a thing called like open range, law of open range. And so that's where like the cattle and everything could just go about. Being able to put a barbed wire fence up and then being able to have it that they only went but so far made it easier for you to keep track of your stuff. Like one end is good, one end is bad. That is this technology called cryptocurrency based on blockchain technology, where you have the ability to have control and ownership of your currency, of your fund. That is on you for being your own bank. Granted, I say that a lot of the new folks coming in don't care about being their own bank, but whatever. The point being is that this was a game changer, and the same kind of thing is happening in this new 21st century technology as far as blockchain in comparison to the manual thing of barbed wire. And so I would argue, and this isn't me saying, hey, you got to read it because you got to be a Bitcoin maximalist. It's more so like, if you're getting into this DeFi, Web3, metaverse, blah, 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 how much of it is actually working to give you the ability to have your sovereignty, to be able to move how you choose to move? If you're telling me that you still got a KYC and they still have the ability to freeze your funds, or they still have the ability to prevent you from using the thing that you paid for or that you built or that you contributed to, it ain't really all that freedom, right? It ain't really all that free. Not saying you got to be a Bitcoin maxi, but I would say definitely look into it to figure out, like, if the things that you're getting into within this blockchain crypto space in this new age of Web3 and metaverse, whatever, how far are you from being able to be stuck inside the walled garden versus being able to walk outside the walled garden? I'm gonna leave that there. Link for that will be in the description on this. And so if I've been saying anything that's totally left field, talking out of my ass, guess what? You can always leave a comment. If you don't agree with nothing, guess what? You can also do a thumbs down. But if I did say something, I would appreciate the share. I would appreciate the like. I would appreciate a comment too. Nonetheless, I'm closing it out with the last two things being is that we're giving away these Arculus hard wallets. Those are in limited numbers. That's going to be for the paid members. And then we're also doing the giveaway for the Blockchain Futurist Conference, which will be in August on the 9th and the 10th. I'm going to be in town for that. We're giving away general tickets. Those are going to be a limited number too. And we're also, I have a 50% off on the ticket admissions. If you use TREK, which is TREKK 50, so that's TREK 50, gets you 50% off. You can pop that into the promo code and that'll work for you there. And those are the two things I'll leave y'all with on that. Other than that, I am Trek with 2Ks. This is my two Satoshis, and I'm on CBTV. And so until the next one.